So if you can help business owners get on these highways, they're going to thank you for it with money.
Welcome back to Life Worth Chasing. I'm your host, Chase Maher, and this show is about helping entrepreneurs build their business around their dream lifestyle. Our guest today is a #1 international best-selling author, speaker, owner of several seven-figure digital businesses. His mindset, marketing, sales, and business systems are known as the secret ingredient behind thousands of successful digital marketers, salespeople, software providers, and entrepreneurs that he's directly had a hand in their growth and their success. He's a good friend of mine. He's someone I turn to for advice in the digital marketing space. He is Abdul Farooqi. And Abdul is somebody that I just spent some time with in Vancouver a couple weekends ago when this airs. And we started talking. I said, dude, I need to get you on the podcast. He said yes, and here he is. What's up, Abdul?
What's going on, man? That's a pretty epic intro. I love it.
Yeah, man. Well, you're a pretty epic guy, man. I always tell people whenever they ask me, like, you know, who's the top dog, who's one of the top dogs in the digital marketing space. And I feel like with you, there's so many people in that space that are focused on their personal brand and focused on like making themselves look like way ahead of where they actually are. And then there's you who's way ahead of where it looks like you are. And it's kind of like an interesting dynamic. And it's something that I really wanted to shine some light on. One, because I feel like you deserve it, but two, because I feel like we're very similar in that aspect of follow what I do and see where I'm going, not so much of like trying to hype myself up. So it's pretty cool, man. Let's jump right into it though. I know you got a pretty epic backstory. You're an immigrant, you're living in Canada now, and you're dominating that space. So like, tell me sort of how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, man, basically moved here when I was 12 years old. And, when you move here from Pakistan, in Pakistan, our family was doing pretty well. And then we moved to Canada. My dad just had to get a pretty typical job at a 7-Eleven. And he's got 6 mouths to feed, right? He's got his wife and 6 kids. So I was one of 6. I was the oldest one, had the most responsibility. And just being 12 years old, seeing that, the whole family surviving on, 30 grand a year. I'm used to saying 30 grand a month now. But the whole family surviving on 30 grand a year, you learn pretty quickly that, okay, you need to make some money in order to help out the family and make ends meet. So yeah, it was an interesting journey, man.
So what did you do if you were the oldest and you needed to start making some money? Like, where did you start hustling first?
Dude, so I've got a pretty big family. We're 5 brothers, 1 sister. And me and my younger brothers used to like buy a bunch of pop, like soda cans, I think you call it in the US, and sell it to our classmates after gym class. So because of my dad's hookup, right, we would get 20 just big energy drink bottles or just like pop for like super cheap. We'll get 20 for maybe $4 or $5. And my dad would just bring cartons home. And my dad was always like wondering where would the cartons go. And we were just selling to our classmates for $3 a pop. So that was like one of our very first hustles. One of my younger brothers actually gave me the idea, and I was like, I was more salesy than him, and I understood like sales better. So we just, that was one of the very first hustles that we had. And then afterwards we did lawn aeration. I would go knocking door to door. We would rent an aerator for like $200 for the entire day. And then I would just knock on doors, sell maybe 3 of those for $300 a pop each, and net about like $700. And I would just share the profits with my brothers as well. Small hustles like that. It was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like I see these similar stories and these similar frameworks to growing up across like almost every entrepreneur that I talk to. And a lot of it is something in the realm of buy low, sell high, something in the realm of lawn care or pool service, doing some sort of manual labor. And then eventually you hit a point where you realize like, to scale and take it to the next level, you have to be an owner and you have to have a vested interest and have people or systems that are doing a lot of that for you. And that's where you really shine. So, like, at what point did you realize that that wasn't enough and you had to sort of take it to the next level? Like, how old were you and like, what was that transition like?
Yeah, I think I kept on having these small hustles in throughout high school and then university as well. My parents wanted me to get a really good university education, which I did. Graduated from one of the best schools, business schools in Canada, and then I went and did investment banking for a year, just over a year, until like I was grinding 13, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week for somebody else. And I knew from some of my entrepreneurial experiences as a kid and also even in university that if instead of working for others, if I put in 13 hours a day uh, in this day and age towards my own like online hustle, I'll crush it. And even though my first job out of university was a six-figure job, I learned very quickly making 100K a year after taxes and everything. It's actually not that much. And just having that added responsibility, being the oldest one in the family, helping on my family and all that, it wasn't enough money. And I just needed to do more. That's when it sunk in.
Yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense. You kind of see the limitations. And if you have the big goals that I know you do, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show, but you sort of see the limitations of even a six-figure salary, especially in somewhere like Canada where you're taxed at an even higher rate than like where I live in California. And so good on you for seeing that. So you said like immediately you decided that if you spent that amount of time on an online business, like what, just quickly, what sort of went into the decision making to do it online rather than some other, entrepreneurial endeavor?
Yeah, man. I think my story, my big scale online entrepreneurial story actually started in San Diego, where you're from. So this is when I'd been laid off from my banking job because the mining industry was collapsing here in Canada.
And Abdul, when is this? What year?
This is about six years ago.
Okay, and how old are you now?
I'm 31 now.
31. Okay, so about 25.
Yeah, I'm 25. I've been making I've made six figures already, and I got laid off, and then I moved to Calgary from Vancouver. Okay, during one of the coldest winters Calgary ever had. It was minus 35 degrees Celsius, which is I think is the same in Fahrenheit when you go into minus.
Yeah, very, very close.
So very cold. I had maybe $1,000 in my checking account. I had $10,000 in credit card debt. I'd burned through all my savings because helping out the family and just all the other expenses which are going on as well. And then I saw this event which was happening in San Diego, and the cost was $500 to attend the event, and the flight was approximately $500 as well. So I'm like, all right, man. My credit cards were maxed at 10,000, so I'm like, okay, you know what? This last $1,000 I have, I'm gonna just like pay off my credit card by 1,000 so I can afford the flight and I can afford this event. I went to this event. I stayed. I don't know, man, if you walked through the block in downtown and I pointed you the hosteling, the hostel, international hosteling chain that's there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Stayed at a $20 a night place Okay. And I remember sleeping on the bunk bed, and there's this loud, super loud snorer that's like like snoring the whole night. He's turning the whole bunk bed is creaking, and throughout the night I couldn't sleep. The pillows smelled awful, and I'm like, man, I gotta change the so I went to the event and I met a few entrepreneurs that were making like 20, 30K a month, like net, after running Google Ads, after running SEO. And I'm like, okay, I got to get on this, right? So I kind of asked them, I'm like, okay, how are you doing this? When you're at networking events, you're meeting people face to face, you're able to see that, you know what, this person's not all that special. Like if they can do it, I can do it, you know? I'm into one of the best universities and all that. Like, cool, all good. Like, I think I got by university because of the relationships I had, you know, like I knew smart people that would help me out. So, same thing here. I was like, if these guys can do it, so can I. And that's what triggered the journey, my friend.
That's amazing. You know how many times that I've had that same realization when I was like throughout my 20s, I just turned 30, where it was like somebody a couple years older than me or even a couple years younger than me just absolutely killing it. And I'm like, dude, if they could do it, I can do it. It's just all about focus, putting that work ethic into one lane and just staying in that lane, or knowing when to cut the cord and try something different. So that's really impressive, man. And a cool story, like your last $1,000 on that event. So like what happened from there? I would imagine that you just became a millionaire overnight, right?
I wish. So what happened was I had to beg my mom to give me 6 more months into this hustle. I told her I'm going to stop interviewing for jobs. I'm not going to go back to Calgary in minus 35 degrees Celsius weather, freezing my toes off. And I
Freezing his ass off is what he wanted to say.
and I would rather like just, you know, because my mom's like, you're the oldest, you got to help out the family, but I'll give you 6 months, right? I'll give you 6 months to focus on this. So I just like network, and I spoke with the two guys that I found to have very solid online businesses. One of them was doing SEO. The other one was running Google Ads. And I just like absorbed as much as I could from them. And they, you know, both of them were doing about like 20 to 30K a month. So I reached out to my personal network. I started posting on Craigslist. I did some email marketing to try to get in front of local business owners. And my pitch was basically, listen, you have no idea what you're doing with your online ads. Let me help you out. And did I know anything? Like, not really, bro. But I knew a little bit more than them, right? After talking to these people, I knew just a little bit more than them. I didn't know any coding. I have no tech skills. My degree was in business. You know, I don't like sitting in front of a computer for very long periods of time, but I was hungry, and I just like, you know, I needed to make it work for myself and my family in the next 6 months.
That's amazing, man. So I think we can all assume that the next 5.5 years up until now, a lot of hard work, a lot of failures, a lot of different businesses that you've started, that you've shut down, that you've kept, that you succeeded in. And I know that Abdul, like I said, he's a good friend of mine. We were in Vancouver, my girlfriend and I. And of course, I wanted to carve out at least a meal to hang out with him outside all the sightseeing and all the stuff that Shay and I were doing. So we went to dinner. We went and got nice seafood right on the water. It was one of Abdul's favorite spots because it was like 6 feet from his condo. Of course, it was convenient for him, but he was very nice enough to, take my girlfriend and I out to dinner. And while we were there, Abdul was talking about how he's got 3 businesses now That's his main focus. And so tell me and share with the listeners a little bit about each of those businesses, and then we'll just kind of, take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is the marketing agency, is what I started out with about 5 years ago. In that marketing agency, we are helping local business owners. Now we mainly work attorneys because they've got larger budgets. We started out working. My very first client was a carpet cleaner that paid me $500 a month, right? And now our clients pay us a minimum of $5,000 a month.
So there's got to be a lesson in there, right? Like if you're doing an agency, I would imagine that you learn pretty quickly going after the people with a larger budget, you can get a smaller percentage of a larger budget. So like, here's what I've noticed with the online ad space is that if you're taking a large bulk of somebody with a smaller budget, they're going to complain and they're going to have a lot of issues and they're going to be a tough client. But it's something I learned from you and somebody like Douglas is that if you take a smaller percentage of a larger budget, it's usually an easier client, right?
Yeah. I think one step at a time for people as well. Was Abdul 5 years ago able to close? One of my larger clients pays me over 30 grand a month, just one client. And was Abdul 5 years ago able to close a 30K a month client? No, definitely not. But Abdul 5 years ago had to close a $500 a month client. And then after that, $1,000 a month client. And then after that, $2,000 a month client, and get there eventually. I think the most important piece for people is to get started. I think
that's so good, man.
I think so many people are just like waiting for the perfect moment. I have really good friends of mine here in Vancouver that just have seen my exponential rise, and they want to do the same. I see it in their eyes, and I want them to do the same thing as well. Like my brothers now are all in online business as well, right? My whole family's invested into this. The brother after me, he's making six figures. So one after that, he's an engineer. He's actually going to quit engineering so he can get on online business with me as well. The brother after that, he's working with me as well. He's making six figures too. And the space is so wide open. There's just so much opportunity here right now. I like to call it like online real estate, because your audience is more like probably primed to understanding real estate and all that. I feel like just getting those online ads out there as well, it's a form of real estate. It's a form of online real estate, which not too many people have invested into just yet. And if you can learn how to have online real estate, like being on the first page of Google, it's super valuable real estate because it gets a lot of traffic, right? The higher up you are, the more foot traffic, open and close quotations, that you will be getting. The lower you are, the less foot traffic you're going to be getting. So just like, if someone is thinking about buying Starbucks, they're going to look at the foot traffic. If the Starbucks is located close to Broadway Road or like a major like street in downtown, there's a lot of foot traffic. And then there's Starbucks on the smaller streets, which the rent is going to be lower just because there's less foot traffic. Same thing with online, right? There's highways with a lot of traffic, and there's smaller roads with less traffic. So if you can help business owners get on these highways, they're going to thank you for it with money.
Yeah, man. That's so good. So the lessons in there are, obviously you want to grow bigger and bigger in your clientele and their budget, but just get started so that you're not thinking what if that whole time. So that $500 a month retainer turns into 1,000, turns into 5,000, turns into 15,000. And now you're rolling in 30,000. And I bet if we talk to Abdul 5 years from now, you're looking at $300,000 a month retainers. And so just get started. So that's one business model. And we're actually going to talk a little bit in about 10 or 15 minutes about how now you teach people to start that business. But let's table that for a second. What's the second business that you're running right now?
So the second one is where we are partnering up with influencers, showing them how to monetize their traffic as well. So what's happening right now is there's a big boom in how many influencers are out there, right? On YouTube, on Instagram, and these are artists, right? These people really love what they're doing. If they're talking about teaching people how to play the guitar, or they're talking about working out, or they're talking about meditation, they're really passionate about this art, but they don't really know how to monetize on that art, right? There's influencers out there, there's YouTubers out there that have 500,000 followers, right? But they're, dude, this is a great example. Actually, a year ago, I met this influencer. He's got over 1 million followers on Instagram, and he was making less than $50,000 a year. Okay. Less than $50,000 a year. And his Instagram page was about making money. And, he met me. He's like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, how can I make more money with this? And, they're really good at getting attention, but they have no idea on how to monetize it. Whereas I'm from the other part of the world. Like, I know how to monetize. I know how to get traffic, and then to convert that traffic into money so that, you can reinvest more into the business, grow the business even more, offer better solutions, better products to the world, right? So we have the second business is actually partnering up with influencers and helping them monetize. And that one is growing really fast. It's right now just as big as the agency, and I think next is going to be an 8-year business. So we're on track for that.
Wow, that's incredible. So it cut out a little bit, but you're projecting next year to be an 8-figure business. That's amazing. All right, let's get into the third business, which is something that I really wanted to talk about that I think the listeners could benefit the most from. It's probably a lot of people that not every listener is a fix and flipper or a wholesaler or a real estate agent or a real estate investor. A lot of them want to put their money into real estate or want to learn how to invest that money, but they're not quite making enough money to get to that point. And that's where somebody like you comes in to sort of educate them on how to make money online. And then what they want to do with it at that point, if they want to reinvest it into their business or into real estate, that's up to them. So let's talk a little bit about, taking John Doe, who's listening right now, wants to make money online, and he wants to learn from somebody like you. What does he do?
Yeah. So after I had a lot of success with our agency, we decided to roll out a program on teaching people how to do that. We teach people from like A to Z. Like, if you know nothing about online, this is for them. And if you've never run ads before, you don't need to know coding. You don't need to just like sit in front of a computer all day long. Like, you definitely put in the work. We show them how you can do it on the side, even if you have a full-time hustle or a full-time job, how you can set up ads on Facebook, on Instagram to generate money for local business owners. We show them how to get the attention of local business owners so they book a call on your calendar to speak with you, as opposed to trying cold calling and all that. Those are dated methods of reaching out to business owners. But if you have business owners booking a call on your calendar to speak with you, then the sale becomes a lot easier. Your positioning is a lot better. and you can sell at a much more premium price than you would if you were cold calling someone. And when you're able to sell at a premium price, you're able to provide a better service to them, feel good about what you're doing, and keep on getting more and more clients. So we launched that about a year ago. It's been a huge success. We already have about 810 students just like in 14 months or so. So yeah.
Amazing, man. I know that when you and I were in Vegas together, I think you were just getting that launched, right?
Yeah, I think around that time, it was very early stages for that.
Like less than 100 students, I think.
Less than 100 students, yeah.
That's incredible to hear that you've 8x that since then. That's pretty cool, man. So what does that process look like? Do they jump on a call with you, or do they watch a training? Like, walk me through if somebody's like, dude, I'm ready to go. Like, this guy's story is amazing. I want to do this. I want to learn from him. And trust me when I say, like, I vouch for this guy. I know he's an honest, trustworthy, soon to be family man. He's got a baby on the way. Very, very cool guy. So what if somebody wants to take this program or get into it? What's the next step?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys can check out the link at train.themillionairemiddleman.com/chase. And once you go on there, it's just a video that walks you through the opportunity, like what's out there, what you guys can expect. For example, just last year, $80 billion of advertising was spent on Google. On Google, $80 billion was spent just last year, which was like a 10 or 15% growth. And next year, it's expected to be like 90 billion. So the market is just growing so fast that there's so much opportunity for people with the skill set to capitalize on, right? Like there's local business owners, your lawyers, doctors, dentists, plumbers, they're all realizing the importance of online marketing every single year. They're allocating more and more of their budget towards online advertising. So if you have a family or friend that has a business, 90% of the time they need something like this. And then we show you how to actually get a client as well. How do you get someone to book a call on your calendar? So you're not chasing them. You're not, doing that MLM type of techniques like free dinner for everyone and then pitching them at, you don't feel scuzzy. They're booking a call on your calendar, how to create value. We show you how to create value and exclusivity up front. So your positioning is a lot better. And when your positioning is a lot better, then you can charge more for your services. And when you can charge more for your service is better. They're happy and they pay you month after month. Like I've got clients that have been paying me for the past 4 or 5 years, right? Like one of my clients, so the carpet cleaner I lost just because he wanted to meet, he was only spending $500 a month and he wanted to meet at his local mall cafeteria every 2 weeks. but it came to a point it wasn't worth my time. But I've got clients that I got 4 years ago that paid me $1,500 a month that are still paying me that much money, right? So it's one of the best business models out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, the cash flow sounds amazing. I know you and we're going to be talking about some stuff here in the near future because that cash flow is just very enticing. But I know this time that I get into that world, I'm going to be partnering up with somebody like yourself that knows that space so that I can stay in my lane and vice versa. I know we've talked a little bit about you jumping into my space a little bit. And when I was giving you that advice, stick with the expert and stay in your lane because you're the expert in your lane. So that's something huge that I've learned. But man, that sounds amazing. So we're going to put that link in the show notes. Let's go through just the last few things before we jump off, Abdul. What are some resources or people or guides or books that you've followed or listened to or read that have like totally changed the game for you so that somebody else, if they want to be just like you, they can go read that or follow that person?
I think when I was starting out, there's different books for different parts of the journey. When I was starting out, I really enjoyed 10X by my man Cardone.
Yeah, 10X. There we go.
The Audible was really inspirational. It gets you going, and it gets you to take as much action as possible. It's partially the reason also why I published a book. It's because, Cardone was just like, Uncle G was just like, let's do everything, So that's something that pushed me. I think now I really enjoyed Principles by Ray Dalio. Very good book. Now that I'm becoming more of like not an operator as much, thinking more like an owner, and thinking that these companies are, a portfolio, and just being more strategic about it. So I really, really enjoy Ray Dalio. It's just teaches you how to think.
Cool. Yeah, I love it. Principles and 10X, those are like two of my top 5 for sure. Love those books. So Abdul, we talked a little bit about how you went from the 500 a month to the 30,000 a month. And, I threw out the 300,000 a month in 5 years, but really, where are you going in the future? If you were to think like 5 years from now, you and I are hanging out in either San Diego or Vancouver, and we look back, hey, remember that podcast we did together, that first one, because I'm sure there'll be more. How does that 5-year span look like if it was like the ultimate success for you? What direction are you going in?
When I first started out, it was out of necessity, just trying to like help out my family and just being a good leader for my brothers as well. And I just wanted to make enough money so we're in a better position financially. So I was very money driven starting out. But after you're making good money, it's really about the last 2 years, it's really been about like impact and putting out stuff which is helping people out. Of course, revenue drives all of that too. So I'm pretty analytical. I do want to have a $100 million dollar business, something of like meaningful impact. That's what I'm going for. And I think just working with an artist, someone who's really passionate about their art, is one of the ways I'm doing that with. I think that business is going to be huge. Yeah, just do something awesome, that my kids can look at. It's like a legacy business, and to be just proud of at the end of the day.
That's awesome, man. What would be like that number one actionable tip for somebody besides just get started, besides, of course, watch that training video? What's that like number one thing if somebody is like those people in your area that you were saying are just in the same spot 5 years ago? They've just been watching you grow. I always like to ask the successful people I have on here, like, what's that number one thing that you would tell somebody?
I think what really helped me out when I was getting started is before going to bed, writing down the 3 activities that I must do tomorrow to get closer to my goal, to get closer to whatever it is. Like for me, when I was starting out, it was like my first client. I wanted to get my first client. So before going to bed, I would just write down what I have to do to get closer to getting that client, to getting that first meeting. And that way I had so much clarity going into the next day as to what I have to do, with the energy that I have. And even today, man, like my morning routine, when I wake up, a lot of people meditate and all that. Like I think when I brush my teeth, that's my meditation. But I also look at who Abdul is 2 years from now on. It used to be 3 years, but 1 year has passed since I made that. So it's Abdul, who he is 2 years from now on, and getting crystal clear on that vision. And I think that's partially the reason why I've just been focused on creating awesome businesses that are changing lives, as opposed to, posting a lot on Instagram and all that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, speaking of Instagram, what's like a social platform that somebody can find you on that you are active if they want to sort of follow your journey?
Yeah, so I don't post very often, but I do have interesting stories. I think you see my stories here and there. It's at Mr. Abdulio. So at MRABDULIO.
Cool. At Mr. Abdulio. Awesome. Abdul, I appreciate it, man. I think this is a really impactful episode, especially for your very first podcast appearance. Very cool. I'm honored. I enjoyed hanging out with you in Vancouver. I enjoyed this as well, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, brother. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to Life Worth Chasing with me, your host, Chase Maher. If you like the show, smash that subscribe button. Leave me a rate and review. You know what? Screenshot the show, share it on Instagram, tag me at I am Chase Maher, and I'll repost it. There's hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and you've made the decision to listen to mine, which is so cool. I'll see you on the next show.